I don't even know where to start because it feels like everything collapsed so quickly, but in reality, it was years in the making. My name is Olivia. I'm 30 years old, and for the past 8 years, I was married to Andrew. Or at least, I thought we were married, in spirit, not just on paper. Turns out, for him, it was mostly paper. I met Andrew when I was 21. Fresh out of college, full of dreams, I fell for him because he had that mix of rugged confidence and what I thought was sincerity. He was 27 at the time, already working a stable job at an architecture firm, and he made me feel like I had a partner who would build a life with me. We moved in together within 6 months. I should have seen the red flags early on, how he never wanted to help plan things, how he forgot my birthday the first year we were dating and laughed it off like it was charming. I excused it, thinking he was just not good with dates. We got married on a warm May afternoon. A small ceremony, just 50 guests, close friends, family, simple but beautiful. I wore my grandmother's wedding dress, which I had carefully restored for months. Andrew forgot the wedding vows at home and had to improvise on the spot. Everyone laughed about it. I pretended to too. The first 2 years of marriage, I gave everything I had. I planned date nights, surprised him with trips, made our home warm and inviting. Meanwhile, he started staying longer at work, hanging out with coworkers more often than coming home. At first, it was just happy hours. Then weekend work trips. One time I found a receipt for a hotel in the city when he said he was out of state. He gaslighted me, said he must have accidentally kept an old receipt from a bachelor party. I let it go. By year 4, I was practically living alone in our house. I'd leave sticky notes with "I love you" written on them. They'd end up in the trash, unread. I'd cook his favorite meals. He'd stop for fast food on the way home. We tried therapy. Or I tried therapy. He came to 2 sessions, spent the entire time on his phone, and said he didn't need someone telling him how to feel. I kept thinking, maybe next year will be better. We bought a house, a 3-bedroom colonial in a sleepy suburb. I pushed for it, thinking a fresh start might reignite something. He didn't even come to the open houses. I picked it out myself, negotiated the deal myself, handled the inspections myself. On moving day, he didn't show up until 8 p.m. drunk with a 6-pack in hand. His friends, Nate and Tyler, helped me move every single box. Speaking of Nate and Tyler, they were Andrew's best friends since high school. At first, they were nice enough, but as time passed, they became a toxic extension of Andrew. They'd crash at our house without asking, drink all night, break things, leave messes for me to clean up. Once, I came home to find one of them passed out on our new white couch with an open bag of Cheetos crushed underneath him. When I confronted Andrew about boundaries, he said, "It's just how we unwind." Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs, teaching art at a community center during the day and waitressing at night, because Andrew had decided to take a break from architecture to find himself and try writing a novel. Spoiler alert, he spent most of that break playing Xbox and smoking weed in the garage. Fast forward to this year. Our 8th anniversary. I had been planning something simple but meaningful, a dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date, followed by a staycation at the same little bed and breakfast we stayed at on our honeymoon. I saved up for months because I knew he would never suggest doing anything special, let alone pay for it. The week leading up to our anniversary, I tried to hint at it, bringing up old memories, leaving little notes. He barely grunted in response. The night before, he said he was going out with the guys and not to wait up. I stayed up anyway, sitting by the window like some desperate 1950s housewife, waiting for headlights that never came. On the morning of our anniversary, I made coffee, set the table nicely, and waited. He stumbled in around noon, reeking of alcohol and cheap perfume, with a smear of lipstick on his collar. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him, and he looked right through me, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and flopped onto the couch. Hours passed. Nothing. No card. No happy anniversary. Not even a grunt of acknowledgement. Finally, I broke. I asked him, "Do you even know what today is?" He stared at me blankly, then said, "Wednesday." That was it. 8 years of my life, forgotten like a meaningless Wednesday. I should have screamed. I should have thrown something. But I didn't. I just stood there, feeling every minute of every year crush me from the inside out. He passed out on the couch by 5 p.m. I packed a bag. Not all my things, just enough to leave. My best friend, Jenna, came to get me. When I stepped outside, I saw his car parked crookedly on the lawn, 2 tires flat. Apparently, he had gotten into a fight with Tyler at the bar the night before, and they slashed each other's tires in some drunken rage. Jenna helped me load my things into her car. As we did, Tyler actually showed up, high as a kite, shirtless, demanding that Andrew pay him for damages. They started fighting in the driveway. Neighbors came out to watch like it was some kind of free reality show. I just got in the car and stared straight ahead. That night, at Jenna's apartment, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept buzzing, Andrew calling, then texting. First it was, "Where are you?" Then, "Come home." Then, "You don't even care about us." I turned off my phone. The next morning, Jenna showed me Andrew's Facebook page. He had posted a status. "Some people just aren't loyal." Guess I was too good to her. I laughed so hard I almost cried. The comments from his friends were even worse, calling me a gold digger, saying I was lucky to be with him, that I must have been cheating. Meanwhile, I found out from another mutual friend that Andrew had been sleeping with a bartender named Marissa for over a year. She was 22. I remembered him coming home once with glitter on his neck and some nonsense excuse about a work party. When I finally confronted him days later, he didn't even deny it. He said, "Well, you were never fun anymore." I moved in with Jenna permanently for now. I filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Andrew didn't even contest it. He just signed the papers and sent them back with Nate dropping them off at my work like it was a pizza delivery. The final blow came when I went back to the house to get the rest of my things. Andrew had turned our bedroom into a man cave. My art studio? He converted it into a beer pong room, complete with neon lights and a pool table. There was no trace left of the life I had built. Only the ruins of a marriage he never even cared to remember. And all because he forgot. But really, he forgot years ago. The anniversary was just the final proof that I had been alone for a very, very long time. I had been planning it for weeks. Not a conversation, not an argument, not a dramatic goodbye. Just a simple, silent refusal. After 8 years of carrying the weight of our marriage alone, after he forgot our 8th anniversary like it was just any other Wednesday, I decided my first act of protest would be brutal in its simplicity. I would not pick Andrew up from the airport. It might sound petty to someone on the outside. But after years of compromise, disappointment, and humiliation, it wasn't petty. It was necessary. It was the first crack in the facade I'd been carefully holding together. I wasn't going to make his life easier anymore. Andrew had been on a week-long business trip to Dallas. Supposedly a series of meetings for a new project with his company, Harrington Westwood Architects. In reality, I knew he was treating it like a paid vacation. Late-night bar crawls, luxury hotel rooms, no obligations. Jenna, my best friend, had even shown me an Instagram story posted by one of his coworkers, a smug guy named Brandon, where they were all at a strip club 2 nights earlier. Andrew had the nerve to tell me he was too tired to FaceTime that night. He had texted me that morning. "Flight lands at 6:15. Can you pick me up? Love you. Love you." As if those words still had any weight after everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I took myself out to dinner with Jenna at this loud, chaotic Mexican restaurant downtown, drinking margaritas and laughing in a way I hadn't in months. I turned my phone off and stuffed it into the bottom of my bag. Meanwhile, Andrew would be landing, grabbing his designer carry-on, scanning the crowd for me, expecting, as always, that I would be there. Smiling, forgiving, reliable. But I wasn't there. At 6:45, I knew he would be texting, calling, wondering. By 7 o'clock, I pictured him pacing outside the baggage claim doors, getting angrier by the minute. His face flushed that particular shade of red he always got when something didn't go his way. I finally turned my phone back on around 8 p.m., halfway through my second plate of enchiladas. 17 missed calls. 9 text messages. "Where are you? Hello? Seriously, Olivia? WTF? No apology. No concern. Just indignation that I hadn't performed my usual duty." Jenna leaned over to look at my screen and just shook her head, snickering. "Let him rot," she said. And rot he did. Later I found out through another source, Ryan, one of the few decent guys Andrew worked with, that Andrew had tried to order an Uber. But thanks to the airport's surge pricing that night, the app quoted him $386 for a ride home. He had left his credit card in the hotel room safe in Dallas, and his debit card was nearly maxed out, courtesy of bar tabs and bottle service charges I would later discover. He ended up calling a premium black car service, the kind executives use, and paid $570 for a 40-minute ride home. Cash. All he had left. When he finally stumbled through the front door close to 10:30 p.m., I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. He dropped his suitcase loudly, like a petulant teenager, stomped around the kitchen, slamming cabinet doors. I listened from upstairs as he opened the fridge, realized there was no beer, and cursed under his breath. I had purposely cleared out all the alcohol that morning. Then I heard it, a crash. Something smashing on the floor. I stayed still, heartbeat steady. Let him rage. Let him see what loneliness felt like. The next morning, I found the mess. The crystal decanter we had received as a wedding gift from my parents, shattered into 100 pieces across the tile. He didn't even attempt to clean it up. Instead, I found a passive-aggressive note on the counter, written on a crumpled piece of paper. "Thanks for the warm welcome home. Real mature. Mature." This, from a man who threw tantrums when the world didn't revolve around him. I went about my day without acknowledging it. Without acknowledging him. But the ripples from that night didn't stop there. 2 days later, I bumped into Emily, Andrew's coworker, someone I had met a few times at office parties. Emily was a no-nonsense woman in her late 30s, sharp-eyed and blunt. She pulled me aside in the grocery store of all places, glancing around like she was about to leak state secrets. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this," she said, whispering. "But you should know there's rumors. About Andrew. Dallas wasn't all business." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I saw the strip club video." She shook her head. "No, not that. There's more. He was with someone. Someone. Yeah. Young. Blonde. Not just at the club. Hotel lobby. Breakfast buffet. The pool." It was like being punched in the stomach, but I didn't let it show. I just nodded, thanked her, and walked away with my groceries like nothing happened. Back at home, Andrew was sulking around like a moody teenager, still furious about the airport ordeal. I could tell he wanted me to apologize, to beg forgiveness for inconveniencing him. Instead, I stayed calm, detached. He ranted one night about how marriages are about mutual respect, and what kind of wife doesn't pick her husband up from the airport. I simply replied, "What kind of husband forgets his 8th anniversary?" He had no answer. The shocking thing wasn't even his silence. It was the realization that he genuinely didn't understand. He saw my absence at the airport as a betrayal greater than any of the hundreds he had inflicted on me over the years. In his mind, I had broken the contract, the silent agreement that I would always be there, no matter how badly he treated me. But that contract was null and void. And if that was my first act of protest, it would not be the last. After the airport incident, the house settled into a heavy, suffocating silence. Andrew acted like a wounded animal, stalking from room to room, slamming doors, stomping up the stairs, making sure I knew he was angry without ever actually talking about it. It was like living with a thundercloud ready to explode. I tried to keep the peace for a few days, moving quietly, giving him space. But by the 5th day, I couldn't take the tension anymore. He picked a stupid fight over laundry. That's how it started. I was folding clothes in the living room, mine and his, because despite everything, he still assumed I would do it, when he walked in and saw a wrinkle on one of his shirts. He snatched it off the coffee table and held it up like it was contaminated. Seriously? You can't even fold a damn shirt right. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding, the years of pent-up frustration rising in my throat. "I'm sorry," I said evenly, "that I'm not meeting your extremely high standards after working 2 jobs and keeping this house from falling apart while you go on business trips to strip clubs." His face flushed immediately. "It wasn't like that," he snapped. "You have no idea the stress I'm under. You think it's easy leading my department with everyone breathing down my neck." I almost laughed. Andrew hadn't been leading anything. Word around town was that Harrington Westwood was restructuring, and Andrew had barely survived the last round of layoffs because his uncle, Peter Harrington, was a partner in the firm. He'd been coasting, blaming everyone else for his slipping performance. "You want to talk about stress?" I said, my voice trembling but loud now. "You forgot our anniversary, Andrew. You couldn't even be bothered to text." He threw the shirt onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. "Jesus, Olivia, it's not like I killed someone. It was a date. One date. I had a lot on my mind." There it was. His favorite move. Minimizing, deflecting, making me feel crazy for caring about basic respect. "You had a lot on your mind?" I repeated, stepping closer. "Like what? Partying with Brandon and Marissa in Dallas? Posting stories from strip clubs while telling me you were exhausted?" His mouth twisted into an ugly sneer. "Oh, so now you're stalking my coworkers' Instagrams? Real healthy, Olivia." I froze. Not because he was right, because he was so deeply wrong, and yet so certain he could turn the blame on me. That was when it truly hit me. This wasn't about a forgotten date. It wasn't about a wrinkled shirt or an expensive taxi ride. This was rot, deep in the bones of our marriage. Andrew didn't just make mistakes, he refused to own them. He was incapable of self-reflection. And worse, he thought I was the problem. That night, Jenna came over. She brought wine, even though I wasn't sure I could keep anything down. We sat out on the back porch while Andrew sulked inside, gaming online with Nate and Tyler, his voice echoing through the open windows, yelling at teenagers in some first-person shooter. "You know he's gonna twist this around, right?" Jenna said, pouring a second glass. "He's gonna tell everyone you're hysterical. Overreacting. Ungrateful." She was right. 2 days later, I found out from Sarah, another work wife at Andrew's office, that he had been complaining about me to anyone who would listen. Telling them I was emotionally unstable, that I had abandonment issues, that I sabotaged him professionally by making scenes at home. I hadn't said a single word to his boss. I hadn't even shown up at any company events for months. But now, thanks to Andrew's whisper campaign, I was the villain. I confronted him one evening after dinner, not that we ate together anymore. He was scrolling his phone at the counter, laughing at some video, not even glancing up when I entered the room. "I talked to Sarah today," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Interesting things she's been hearing." He set his phone down a little too forcefully. "Oh great. What now? You're telling people I'm crazy? That I'm hurting your career?" He rolled his eyes so hard I thought they might fall out of his head. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with every little thing I do, people wouldn't get that impression." There it was again. My fault. Always my fault. "You forgot our anniversary, Andrew. I was under stress. You spent our mortgage money on bottle service. I needed to network. You humiliated me. I didn't ask you to check Instagram." Every time I tried to bring up something real, he slid away from it like oil on water. At one point, I actually laughed, short and bitter. "You're not stressed because of work, Andrew. You're stressed because you know your whole life is coming apart, and you can't blame anyone but yourself." He slammed his fist onto the counter, making the wine glasses rattle in the cupboard. "You're so ungrateful. Do you know how hard I work? You sit around all day doodling in your sketchbook while I deal with real pressure." Doodling. That's what he called my job. Teaching art, the thing that paid for half the damn mortgage. That was the moment something inside me broke cleanly, quietly. Not with a scream, not with a sob, but with a cold certainty. He didn't respect me. He didn't even see me. He saw a maid, a cook, a chauffeur, a fan club president. Not a partner. Not an equal. Later that week, the conflict escalated when Andrew's sister, Michelle, got involved. Michelle had always been a manipulative whirlwind, dramatic, clingy, constantly in need of rescuing. Now she texted me out of the blue. "I heard you're giving my brother a hard time." He doesn't need more stress right now. I ignored it. Then she showed up. At my door. In her leopard print leggings and knockoff Prada bag, fake crying about how Andrew was hanging by a thread, and all he ever wanted was to be a good husband. I let her rant. I stood there, arms crossed, silent. Finally, she demanded, "Aren't you going to say anything?" I said, "Tell your brother to grow up," and closed the door in her face. Andrew, predictably, used Michelle's outburst as another excuse to rage at me. "You're tearing this family apart," he shouted that night, red-faced and sweating. "No, Andrew," I said, voice flat. "You did that all by yourself." There were no apologies. No real conversations. Only more fights, more blame, more denial. The following days were a blur of arguments that circled the same black hole. I was too sensitive. I was too controlling. I expected too much. I wasn't supportive enough. Meanwhile, Andrew stayed out later and later, sleeping at Nate's house half the time. I stopped asking where he was. I stopped caring. The final straw, though I didn't act on it yet, came when I found a receipt tucked into the pocket of his jeans while doing laundry. It was from a jewelry store. A $900 necklace. Not for me. I hadn't seen any jewelry. When I confronted him, he said flatly, it was a gift for a client. Business expense. But he wouldn't look me in the eye. And the client's name, scribbled on the receipt, was Marissa. After weeks of coldness and vicious fights, the air in the house had settled into something even worse, indifference. We barely spoke except to bark logistical necessities at each other. Who needed the car? Who would walk the dog? Who forgot to buy milk? It was survival mode, nothing more. I think Andrew sensed that something inside me had snapped beyond easy repair. Maybe it scared him. Maybe it threatened the comfortable cycle we had lived in for years. Him screwing up, me forgiving, life resetting. One evening after dinner, a dinner I had cooked alone again, he asked if we could talk. His voice was small, almost boyish. I should have been relieved. I wasn't. I just felt tired. We sat on opposite ends of the worn-out couch, the cushions sagging between us like a chasm. "I know things have been bad," he began, not meeting my eyes. "And I know. I haven't exactly been a great husband lately." I didn't respond. Let him speak. "I'm under so much pressure at work, Liv. You have no idea. And yeah, I messed up. I forgot the anniversary. That was. Still no apology. Just an admission. A clinical statement of fact, like he was reading off a police report. But, he continued, I don't want to lose you. I'm willing to work on this. I want us back to the way we used to be." I wanted to scream that we never were what he thought we were. But I said nothing. Instead, I listened as he laid out his plan for fixing things. A special dinner at Belvoir's, the most expensive restaurant in the city. Helping out around the house more. Making more time for me, whatever that meant. Maybe even seeing a therapist, if it would shut you up. Yes, he actually said that part under his breath, thinking I wouldn't catch it. Still, part of me, the broken, desperate part, wanted to believe. Wanted to hope. I agreed to dinner. The next day, Andrew was a whirlwind of performative effort. He cleaned the kitchen, badly, breaking 2 glasses and scratching the stove surface. He folded laundry, putting my delicate sweaters in the dryer, shrinking 2 of them beyond saving. He even bought flowers, cheap gas station carnations, the stems browning at the edges. The entire performance was clumsy and loud, like he was playing the role of good husband in a bad community theater production. But worse than the clumsiness was the aggression underneath it. Every chore he attempted was followed by heavy sighs, muttered complaints, resentful glances, as if helping in his own house was some great sacrifice. By the time Friday night rolled around, I was a bundle of nerves. Andrew picked Belvoir's. It was a sleek, dimly lit place where a single steak cost more than I earned in a week at the community center. He made a reservation for 7 p.m. and insisted on picking me up like it was a first date. I almost laughed when he showed up in a crumpled dress shirt and wrinkled khakis, spraying himself with cheap cologne in the driveway. The drive to the restaurant was stiff. We made small talk about traffic and weather like strangers forced together at a work event. My hands clutched the clutch of my purse like a lifeline. When we arrived, the hostess, a glamorous blonde named Kendra with a voice like melted butter, greeted us warmly. Too warmly. She recognized Andrew immediately. "Mr. Tolland. So good to see you again," she purred. I blinked. Again. Andrew chuckled awkwardly. Yeah. Client dinner last month. Big project kickoff." I remembered that night. He had told me he was stuck late at the office, drowning in paperwork. Strike one. We were seated at a table tucked into a dark corner, too intimate, too suffocating. Andrew ordered a $200 bottle of wine without asking me and launched into a monologue about his work stress. The new boss, Mason Blackwell, a notorious tyrant, the impossible deadlines, the backstabbing coworkers. He talked about himself nonstop for 40 minutes while I nodded and sipped my wine, feeling smaller and smaller. Finally, I cut in. "What about us, Andrew?" He blinked like he genuinely hadn't expected me to speak. "What about us? This isn't just about your job. It's not just about forgetting a date." He frowned, defensive. "I'm trying here, Liv. Jesus. Can't you just meet me halfway?" I set my glass down carefully. Halfway would mean you acknowledge what you've actually done. Not just forgetting an anniversary. Not just stress. Lying. Disrespect. Treating me like a placeholder. He scowled. "You're never happy. I'm busting my ass to fix things, and all you do is tear me down. Across the restaurant, Kendra the hostess was whispering with a waiter and glancing at us with pity. I burned with humiliation. I opened my mouth to respond, but the waiter, a new character in this farce, arrived with our food. He was young, maybe 20, painfully skinny, with hollow cheeks and sad eyes. His name tag said Toby. He set the plates down and said, barely above a whisper, "Hope you enjoy." Andrew didn't even acknowledge him. Just waved him away. Strike two. We ate in silence. The steak was perfect, the wine was perfect, but everything tasted like ashes. After dinner, Andrew insisted on paying the full tab, grandly waving his credit card like he was some magnanimous king. As we waited for the receipt, he leaned across the table and said, "See? This is what we need. Good food. Good wine. Good times. Good times." Like a slogan on a vacation brochure. I forced a smile and nodded. Let him have this moment. Let him think he had one. On the drive home, Andrew blasted old Blink 182 songs, drumming on the steering wheel like we were carefree teenagers. I stared out the window, my heart ice cold. When we got home, the night got worse. In the kitchen, waiting for us was Nate, Andrew's idiot best friend, drunk off his ass, raiding our fridge. "Yo, Drew," he slurred. "Your woman let you off the leash for a night?" I froze. Andrew laughed. "Be nice, man. We're patching things up." Nate winked at me and said, "Don't worry, Liv. I bet he'll be a good boy now. No more Marissas, right?" Silence. Stone silence. I turned to Andrew slowly. "Who's Marissa?" Nate's face went sheet white. "Dude, you didn't tell her?" Andrew lunged at him, grabbing his arm. "Shut up, Nate. You're wasted." I didn't wait for more. I turned on my heel, grabbed my purse, and walked upstairs. Andrew banged on the bedroom door for an hour that night, begging, pleading, swearing Nate was confused, drunk, joking. I said nothing. Because in that moment, no expensive dinner, no flowers, no clumsy chores could undo the truth. Andrew didn't want to change. He wanted to reset. He wanted to erase everything bad and pretend we were fine. But I wasn't fine. I would never be fine with him again. Not after this. I don't know the exact second the switch flipped. There wasn't a dramatic moment with screaming or slamming doors. It was quieter than that. It was standing at the kitchen sink, hands submerged in dirty water, watching Andrew laughing on the phone in the living room and realizing he would never understand what he had destroyed. He was laughing with Nate again. Some story about Tyler wrecking his car after a night at Brewster's, the sleazy dive bar they all loved. Same old cycle. Different day. I stared at the stack of plates, the little cracks in the ceramic from where Andrew had dropped them months ago, and never apologized. I thought, this is my life? This is it? Something hardened inside me. A final click. A door locking shut. I wasn't going to lose myself anymore, waiting for a man who didn't even see me standing 3 feet away. That night, I didn't make dinner. I didn't clean up after Andrew's mess. I went upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and pulled out my old sketchbooks, the ones I hadn't touched in years because real life always got in the way. I flipped through page after page of drawings I barely remembered making, wild, fierce, messy things that had nothing to do with schedules or chores or other people's needs. I stayed up until 3 a.m. drawing. It felt like breathing again after years underwater. The next morning, Andrew noticed the shift immediately. I didn't greet him with a coffee cup or a grocery list. I didn't ask about his day. I didn't fold his socks or laugh at his stupid jokes. He frowned over his cereal like a confused toddler. "You okay?" I smiled, a real wide smile he hadn't seen in years, and said, "I'm great." He didn't like that answer. Later that day, things escalated. I had booked a pottery class at a new art studio across town, determined to fill my life with things that had nothing to do with Andrew. The studio was owned by a woman named Valerie, tall, silver-haired, with an air of untouchable cool. She wore ripped jeans and a leather jacket even though she had to be in her 50s, and when she laughed, the whole room leaned toward her. There, I met people who didn't know me as Andrew's wife. I met Lena, who taught self-defense classes and had tattoos snaking up both arms. I met Marcus, a recently divorced dad trying to reconnect with his creativity. I met Casey, a non-binary jewelry maker who made everyone earrings from scrap metal and brought them to class in a velvet pouch. For the first time in years, I wasn't a satellite orbiting Andrew's sun. I was my own galaxy. Meanwhile, Andrew spiraled. He started checking in constantly, texting me when I left the house, calling repeatedly if I didn't respond in 5 minutes. At first it was framed as concern, then as suspicion, then thinly veiled rage. One night, when I got home late after grabbing coffee with Valerie and a few others, he was waiting in the driveway, arms crossed, pacing like a caged animal. "Where the hell were you?" he barked before I could even close the car door. "Out," I said, breezing past him. He followed me inside, still ranting. "You think you can just disappear for hours without telling me? What if something happened?" I turned to face him fully for the first time in days. "Something did happen, Andrew. I remembered who I am." He scoffed, throwing his hands in the air. "You're acting crazy." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm just done pretending." A few days later, things got even uglier. Andrew's mother, Patricia, a woman who believed marriage was about standing by your man no matter what, showed up at our house with a basket of stale muffins and a Bible tucked under her arm. She sat me down in the living room and said in her syrupy sweet voice, Marriage is hard work, dear. Sometimes we just have to accept a man's flaws and pray for guidance. I smiled sweetly back. Tell me, Patricia, how's your divorce going? She flushed deep red. Patricia's second husband had left her for a 25-year-old yoga instructor 6 months ago, a fact she conveniently forgot whenever she lectured me. She left without finishing her tea. The very next day, Andrew tried his final desperate move. He showed up at my pottery class unannounced. It was mortifying. He burst into the studio like a storm cloud, shoving through the delicate racks of half-finished sculptures, dripping sweat in his office clothes. Everyone stared. Even Valerie looked stunned. Olivia, he said, voice shaking with manufactured emotion. Come home. Please. I'm lost without you. I stood there, clay-stained hands trembling, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every eye in the studio was on me. I walked over to him slowly, feeling the old script rise up, forgive, soothe, fix. But I killed it before it could reach my mouth. I'm not coming with you, I said, voice low but firm. He blinked like I had slapped him. I'm finding myself again, I said louder now. And if you can't handle that, you're not welcome in my life. Valerie stepped up beside me, silent but solid. Andrew looked around the room, at Lena's fierce glare, at Marcus's quiet support, at Casey's folded arms, and realized he had no allies here. He turned on his heel and stormed out, knocking over a display of handmade mugs on his way. One shattered. No one rushed to clean it up. I stayed for the rest of class. I made a lopsided, ugly, beautiful bowl that I still have today. That night, I lay in bed alone, the house blissfully silent. I thought about all the years I had spent waiting for him to change, waiting for him to notice me, waiting for my life to start. No more. Whether Andrew changed or didn't, whether he groveled or didn't, whether he burned down the whole damn house or walked quietly away, it didn't matter anymore. My happiness was mine now. Mine to build. Mine to protect. Mine to live. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I finally felt free.